Hello, this is Tim, and I've been looking at some old films, and one of the films I looked at was the Charlton Heston version of Ben-Hur from the 1950s, still a remarkable film. Why am I thinking about that now? Because Mr. Putin likes to paint the image of himself as a galley slave. Literally, that's the term he uses, serving the people. A galley slave serving the people. Now, it's not original. The idea is not original. The Pope certainly embraces this concept. And Mr. Gorbachev in 1985 said the state is there to serve the people. And in the last 2 weeks, the Moscow mayor, Sergei Sobyanin, has extended this image by saying, from his office in Tverskaya Street, just around the corner from where I would stay if I'm in Moscow, has said that the police have taken up this very specific responsibility to serve the people. Today, there was a second day of protests across Russia, and accordingly, over 5,000 arrests, and one of the most aggressive police presences that I think can possibly be imagined in a democratic country. The centre of Moscow was almost completely locked down. There's a blogger called Varlamov who explained that he managed to get so far and no further. But on the way, he witnessed all manner of police violence and saw the arrest of journalists journalists wear this very distinctive yellowy green reflective vest or jacket. In fact, it seems that journalists including Georgy Markov were tasered. Photographers, like in St. Petersburg, there's a fellow called Timur Kadzibekov. I think it's Kadzibekov. And these are arrested, and YouTubers too were specifically targeted today, with many sites coming under pressure to take down their reports. I think over 36 members of the press have been arrested today for doing their job. So they have been confused with the protesters. The police have also stepped up their methods, closing down areas, yes, and also fiercely battering people with their truncheons, with taser guns. And even there's a BBC report broadcast in Russia that shows a policeman waving what appears to be a real gun at unarmed protesters. Most people who were arrested will be charged with breaking the COVID curfew. That's a fine running to just over £100, and a number of bloggers in Russia are rallying to raise money online to help meet those fines. There are so many people being arrested, in fact, last week and this week, that the police have run out of places to detain them. So they are left in vans and corridors for hours, days, without food or basic needs. In Kazan, apparently police were literally jumping on protesters. Now, in contrast, Navalny's team has urged protesters specifically not to respond to provocation and not to touch the police. I've been sent really disturbing footage of one protester who seems to have set himself alight in Pushkin Square. The anecdotal evidence suggests this protest was larger than the one last week, and the number of arrests is certainly bigger than last week. This is a crowd that is determined to get its message across. And the accusations that the protesters are violent just is not borne out by the facts. As also, it's not borne out by the facts that the claim by the Kremlin that many of the protesters are minors. This is simply not in evidence. The other day, a news channel asked me about the snowballs thrown at the police. And there's certainly footage of this. Look at it here. But it seems harmless, and the police anyway are so heavily armoured it has absolutely no effect. It's faintly charming. Indeed, they are so heavily armoured that they are playfully referred to by the protesters as the cosmonauts. Now, the other story to come out of Russia is a statement that Putin's palace is owned by the billionaire and childhood friend of Mr. Putin and Mr. Putin's judo buddy, Arkady Rottenberg. Rottenberg is certainly close enough to Putin to have been targeted with Western sanctions, so he's part of that inner circle. Of course, Navalny follows Sergei Kolesnikov in claiming the palace was commissioned by Putin in the period when Medvedev took control of the Russian presidency. Navalny claims that the palace is owned by a firm called Binom and somehow linked to Putin's nephew, Mikhail Shalomov. Well, it's taken a while for Rottenberg to come forward. And what is odd is this man, Rottenberg, is a different owner to the one cited as buying the complex in 2009 for $350 million. Of course, he says, well, he acquired it. Well, he doesn't actually say when he acquired it or for how much. Or there isn't a very clear paper trail. There's just an assertion that it's his. I'm afraid the issue with this palace has always been one of anonymity, and the fact that this man can be linked directly to the president himself is deeply suspicious. The thing which I think needs to be explained is how even a billionaire businessman's palace can justify the various state exclusion zones that clearly exist by land and by sea around the palace. Now, in the last week, cameras have been allowed into the complex, specifically to see that that there are problems in the building work with mould and with sort of rising damp and mildew. So yes, mildew gets everywhere, even into Mr. Putin's palace. So there we are. There's a sort of summary of what's been going on in the last few days. And if you have more information, do by all means leave it below, and let's try and get as much of a debate as possible about this. This seems to me to be a very important subject. And maybe you are on the ground, maybe you are in Russia, maybe you know exactly what's going on. So we would love to hear from you. Do subscribe to my channel, and do look at the other videos that are available. And if you would like me to cover something specifically, please leave a note, and I look forward to hearing from you. Thank you very much.